to only have access to the sales app and the service app, we can edit that profile, remove the other apps, and click Save. Now, those users will only have access to those 2 apps. Please note, a profile does way more than this. This is just one use of a profile. Staying on the same subject, we can search for App Menu within Setup and click on the App Menu Setup page to reorder the apps. This simply allows us to choose the order that the apps will be displayed in. This setup page is a part of the User Interface section in Setup. If we search User Interface, we will see all of the pages included in this section. I'd like to take a second to point out the User Interface page, which has a lot of checkboxes you may want to check out. For example, the Enable Inline Editing checkbox. I'd also like to point out the Density Settings page, which allows you to select the default density for your org, which is either comfy or compact. Compact crunches down the spacing and margin between text to fit more on the screen for your users. We also have access to the Global Actions and Publisher pages in this section, which allows us to create and show certain quick actions available to the user. If I go back to the Sales app and then click on the plus button at the top of the screen, you will see the default global actions that are available to me. Things like creating a task, creating an event, creating a lead, and so on. I can customize this list and even create my own actions. Finally, within this section in Setup, we see something called the Lightning App Builder. The Lightning App Builder helps us to create custom pages within Salesforce. We can customize the way a certain record page will look, and we can create custom home pages and choose what components will show up on it. We've customized the user interface a little bit. We've added users. What else do we need to think about when setting up Salesforce? One of the most important things that you can consider as a Salesforce admin is who should have access to which records. For example, your CEO should probably have access to more records than an intern should, and your sales team may not need to see all of the service team's records, while the service team may not need to see all of the sales team records. Or we could think about regional access. The point is, we need to determine who has access to what. The first place we need to go as an admin when determining the sharing model within Salesforce is the org-wide defaults. To get to the org-wide defaults, we need to search for sharing settings within Setup. In the org-wide defaults, we will set the internal access setting for each object in Salesforce. So accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities, cases, and on and on. For each of these objects, we will set it to private, public read-only, or public read-write. There are some other values for certain objects, but we will keep this high level. If there is ever a case when a certain type of user shouldn't be able to see this type of record, you should set the org-wide default to private. So to use cases as an example, I know there are people in the org who shouldn't see every case, so I will set this to private. If every user should be able to see every case, but not every user should be able to edit every case, I will set it to public read only. And if every user should be able to view and edit in every case, we will set it to public read write. Every record in Salesforce has an owner. With this in mind, if we set cases to private, each record will only be able to be accessed by its owner. Now, after setting the org-wide defaults, we want to think about the other tools involved in the Salesforce sharing model. Org-wide defaults are where we start, and they are where we lock things down to their most restrictive state. But then we use these other tools to start to expanding record accessibility. The role hierarchy is what we should configure next. It will remind you of an org chart, but the purpose is to define how record access should be inherited in a hierarchical kind of way. After we define all of the roles and then assign roles to users, records are shared based upon the hierarchy. If someone is directly above me in the hierarchy, then they can see all of the records that I see. And whoever is above them in the hierarchy can see all of the records that both my manager can see and what I can see. Record access is inherited with the role hierarchy. That won't solve all of the record access needs though. So the next tool we would use is a sharing rule. Sharing rules are also on the sharing settings page, and they are broken out by object. So for cases, we would find the case sharing rules and then create a new one. A sharing rule allows us to extend record access by sharing based upon the record owner or based upon record criteria. For example, I could say that all closed cases should be visible to the Eastern Sales Team role. I can share to roles or public groups. Then I can determine if the access is for read-only or read and edit. Finally, if sharing rules don't solve my record access needs, I can set up manual sharing so that users can manually share records they have access to with other users, public groups, or roles. You should think about these sharing model tools in this order, starting with locking things down using org-wide defaults, then setting up role hierarchies to extend access, setting up sharing rules to automatically extend more access, and then setting up manual sharing to account for the final record access use cases. Good job, admin. You can pat yourself on the back. You've configured the UI, you've added users, you've set up record access, and you are well on your way to helping your Salesforce users thrive. Now let's talk a little bit more about profiles and permissions.